And joining me is Yuki Tatsumi from Tokyo as well. She's a director of the Japan program at the Stimson Center. Thank you very much for your time, Yuki. Now, in a country unaccustomed to gun violence or explosive politics for that matter, how have people been absorbing the assassination of Shinzo Abe?
Obviously, there's a huge shockwave. I think people are still recovering from it, and they're all grappling what this means. Does it mean that the era of political violence is on their footsteps, or is this one of the isolated incident? And so far, the investigation reports that have been coming out is, even though this individual has pretty much a premeditated planning to attack former Prime Minister Abe, now late former Prime Minister Abe, his motive is not seen to be politically driven. It is more of the disgruntled with the he has this obsession that the Prime Minister Abe was a strong supporter or had a close relationship with one of the religious groups that he had the grudges against. So hopefully this is just one isolated incident, but the timing of this was truly shocking, and it was almost a wake-up call for everybody in Japan.
In fact, on the timing, I mean, the motives of the perpetrator aside, do you think that this incident perhaps is seen now as a turning point in Japanese political history, or do you think it will just be this tragic, isolated incident? Do you think it's kind of going to extend into the politics and reshape Japanese policy and politics moving forward?
I tend to, at this point, with all the investigative reporting and updates that are coming out so far, I tend to side on the latter, which is that as tragic as it is, this is an isolated incident by a disgruntled citizen who had this maniac obsession about something that was completely untrue about Prime Minister former late Prime Minister Abe's connection with this particular religious group. However, this does raise question about how to protect the retired political leaders who are still serving the Diet members, such as former Prime Minister Abe. And as the report is coming out, there has been the massive failure in the security protocol to protect late Prime Minister Abe. So I think there will be a question about how the moving forward, how the political rallies should be run, how the security protocol needs to be tightened, and unfortunately, this may lead to the new reality that political candidates may not have that as much of an intimate mingling with their supporters and voters during the campaign period.
Now, Abe
for their own safety.
Yeah, well, and interestingly enough, Abe was a strong champion of security policies. He was rallying or trying to rally for more spending on a bigger army, perhaps revising Japan's constitution. Are these some of Abe's ambitions, do you think, that will be pushed further forward now that Kishida has ample room to operate following the success of this election?
We'll see. I think Prime Minister Kishida does have a realistic sense of understanding of Japan's security situation that has been surrounding it, which has been aggravating rapidly in the last few years. But at the same time, just as late former Prime Minister Abe did, Prime Minister Kishida also appreciates the normative constraints that the political reality of this, how much further he can push this envelope. So I have no doubt that the constitutional revision debate will be activated. However, how much of that comes to the fore as a reality and how he can actually bring certain changes to the Constitution, I think the jury is too far out on this one. Because I think his priority at this point is more of an economic side, and that is where the voters' focus was for this election.
Right. Abe had a very strong reputation internationally, had a strong network of international relationships with world leaders. But now with him gone, will the balance of power be fractured inside the LDP, and how might that affect change?
So I think that is an excellent question that still people are trying to figure it out. Late former Prime Minister Abe was the leader of the biggest faction within the party, and he was a senior party statement. statesman. So if there are some disagreements within the LDP regarding how Prime Minister Kishida wants to move forward with some of these more of a competitive policy choices, especially in the realm of economic policies, and the how to balance the finances versus the economic revitalization, it will be interesting how the intra-party dynamics will play out. But I think for the moment, Prime Minister Kishida has proven to have a much steadier hand than some of the speculators have suspected. So hopefully he will use this next 3 years, which I guess in Japanese politics it's called golden 3 years, because he won't have to face another election if he doesn't, if the poll number, for example, doesn't lag too much. So hopefully he will be able to have that room to push through some of these agendas that the voters are really anticipating him to work on.